name is Daniel Marama, and I'm a digital marketing expert. Thank you for tuning in, whether it's live or doing the replay. This live broadcast is intended to serve digital marketers in the credit union space, and it is a companion newsletter that I produce on a bi-weekly basis. And in today's topic, we are going to talk about your LOS, and how it may be exposed when it comes to paid advertising in 2022 and beyond. But before we get into that, we are going to backtrack a little bit and get to understand why cookies are important and what they have to do with your LOS, and then how do you safeguard your LOS moving forward in terms of the information you know. But again, the reason why I share this information with marketers in the credit union space is because I connect and network with many marketers, and what I've learned is that many wear in their credit unions, and as a result, it is darn near impossible to both do the tasks that you are required to with your work, and also keep track of all the changes in the digital marketing landscape. And as a result, my goal is to fill that gap and to share the information that is critical to your bottom line, and make sure that you know what you need to know, especially if you start not seeing the results that you have been previously accustomed to. Then you might have the answers that you need in order to understand what is going on, because there is a digital storm that is coming, and my job is to make sure that you are aware of that storm. So without further ado, let's go ahead and today's presentation. Now, bear with me. One thing that you need to know is cookies and the difference between first and third. Before I go into the difference between those two, talk about what are cookies. Cookies are essentially a piece of data that a website user when that user comes to a website. So an example would be, if I go to a website, you are going to be able to attach a cookie to me, and that cookie is going to be either a first or a third-party cookie. Now, the difference between the two is the example that I like to share. Let's go to CNN.com to consume an article. Now, on CNN.com, you may have buttons like the Facebook like button and networks that are out there, but with the Facebook like button, if that Facebook like button attaches a cookie to the user that comes to that site, that is considered a third-party cookie, because Facebook.com is not the domain that you visited. CNN.com is the main domain that you visited, but since Facebook is going to be attaching that cookie to you, that is considered third-party. If I visit CNN.com and CNN.com has a cookie that they're going to attach to me as a user, then that is considered a first-party cookie, and that is the difference between the two. Now, third-party cookies are going to be phased out. There are businesses out there that have already blocked third-party cookies. The major one that's coming is going to be Google. Google is going to be blocking third-party cookies in 2023, and that is going to certainly have a major impact on aside from all the different changes that have already occurred. The iOS 14 update, which I talked about in the previous live broadcast. So with third-party cookies, why are they important? How were they used previously? Third-party cookies were essentially to be able to track users who went from site to site, and they were used primarily for programmatic advertising, which allowed advertisers to be able to retarget somebody when they went to multiple sites, as well as be able to track what sites they're going to in order for us to put ads to those. Now, the difference in the shift that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to rely on first-party cookies. First-party cookies are definitely trusted by all the browsers because they, one, are different from third-party cookies. Secondly, first-party cookies can be used for various reasons. Like a simple example would if I come to your website and I have to log in, first party cookie can be used to remember who you are and make the browser experience frictionless for the person who comes in. That way they don't have to type in their login information. For example, if you go to your credit union and I want to log in to check, I'm at my computer browser who I am through cookies, and as a result, I don't have to remember my login information. I can simply just click the login button in there, and as a result, these browsers are going to accept first-party cookies, and they're going to trust first-party cookies because they know that third-party cookies aren't from your domain, and therefore they can easily block them. It's very hard for these browsers and apps to differentiate what is a good first-party cookies versus maybe a different first-party cookie, and as a result, they just simply trust all first-party cookies. So why is this important, and what does this have to do with your LOS, your mortgage LOS, and why am I exposing this information to you, and why might your LOS, when it comes to the shift in the marketing landscape moving forward? That is a great question. What it boils down to is when a website, you're going to start needing to capture information about that visitor because you no longer can rely on third-party cookies. So a perfect scenario, what you would want to do is to be able to, once somebody, for example, for a mortgage loan and they start filling in the information and that information gets inputted into LOS, what you would love to do is to be able to capture both the with the first party data that you're going to be capturing when a person comes to your site. And as you and I both know, well, for the most part, most people don't fill out the application the first time they come to your site. So important pieces of information that you may want your capture could include but are not limited to, for example, what is the initial traffic source that brought that user to your site in the first place? So an example could be paid ad initially brought that to your website, and then they did not complete the application. They were browsing around social media and they saw your Facebook ad. Your Facebook ad ended up having more information maybe than a Google display ad or a Google search ad that initially brought them to your site, but now maybe they're seeing some social proof between all the comments that are on your Facebook ad. They are seeing themselves in the ad itself, because in the ad you're showing a family that has recently got their home loan and they're excited about the future and what chapter in their life is going to do for them, and as a result they click on that ad and they come to your site and they decide to complete the application. Now you know that ended up bringing them to your site and actually converted the person from the ad that they saw from Google. Now helped get them to complete the application. Now, without the first, you don't necessarily know who traffic source essentially ended up helping you in that new member to complete the application. Would say, hey, I'm the one who is responsible for that completed application. I'm going to take the credit. Facebook may say, or you could go to a Facebook dashboard and Facebook may say, hey, I'm the one who got the prospect to come in and complete the application. And the important ain't necessarily whether or not Facebook is right or Google is right. The important thing that you need to understand is two platforms work together in order to essentially get that you are looking to do, which is get a complete application. And understanding one example, understanding the behavior of 1,000 people who complete the application, that is both going to allow you to understand how people are engaging with your site, as well as you can start feeding that information back platforms in order to feed the algorithm and get them to get them to understand what is the DNA of the people that are completing the applications. That way they can go or completing the application. People who are doing these similar behaviors online, people who recently completed the application, you want to get to them before the other lenders get to them. And the way you do that is essentially when that contact record goes to your LOS, you want to push that first part with that information. And then from that, you can first take a look and understand what is the DNA and the makeup of the behaviors and characteristics of the prospects that are engaging with your site. And then you also want to take that information and feed to the Facebook and the Google in terms of, hey, this person recently completed the application, and this is the Facebook click ID or Google click ID that brought them to the site. They were at the time, because if you don't have information about that prospect, they are anonymous to you. But once they complete the application, they now you know and now know who they are in terms of their name. You have their click ID, whether it's Facebook or Google. You know which traffic source brought them to your site. You know which traffic source got them to complete the application. And then what you do is you take that information, that first party, you then send it back to Google, you send it back to Facebook and say, hey, this Facebook click ID recently completed an application. You, Facebook, have visibility into what that click ID was doing outside of my site, and therefore take a look and see what they were doing and what is the similarity between these 100 people or these 1,000 people that recently completed the application. Then what Facebook and Google are going to know is, hey, this person, look at rates, they visited your competitor and they were researching XYZ. They were on realtor.com, they were on trulia.com, and as a result, these 7 websites are the critical indicators and triggers that would allow us to know is in the market for a home loan. So those platforms are going to then be able to add those people and essentially bring them to the site, and the cycle repeats itself. Now, the biggest shift between today and moving forward versus maybe 2 years ago is that this information was being passed through third-party cookies and so easily accessible to these platforms. But with the privacy-first world that we're going towards, that is because there's going to be a drop in information platforms have. These platforms aren't going to have nearly the information that they used to have because of the iOS update, for example, the iOS 14 update that is allowing iOS users to block tracking to happen when these people are on your site. These algorithms don't have the same information that they used to have prior to these privacy first changes. So what mortgage originators are going to have to do is they're going to have to capture that information. They're going to have to share it with the and the third-party platforms that they leverage for paid advertising, and then that feedback to continue in order for your paid advertising to work. If that is occurring, or if you're not set to make that shift, then what you're going to end up seeing is you're going to end up seeing a drop between the that you generate with your paid advertising in, let's say, 2019 and maybe even 2020 versus 2022 and 2023 and beyond. And the privacy first world is not going to go away. This is the new world that we're in, and like I said, there's a storm that is coming, and we all need to be ready for that shift. So that is the most take from today's live broadcast and what I wanted to share with you. Now, as far as the newsletter that I mentioned previously, that is the Rethink Mortgage Origination newsletter. You can certainly find your way to it on my profile, or I will definitely end up sharing where you can subscribe after this and you can simply access it that way. And I hope you found some value in this live broadcast. Again, this is going to be a bi-weekly live broadcast where I'm going to be information just like this that are going to be critical in terms of leveraging paid advertising moving forward for credit union. Again, this live broadcast is intended to serve marketers in the credit union space, but certainly, as you can see, anybody can leverage the information, whether or not you're in a credit union. You could be a bank, or you could be a chiropractor, a dentist. This is essentially comes down to the changes that are happening in the digital landscape and what you need to do to be prepared for change if you want to be able to leverage paid advertising in your marketing. The other people or the other interested party could be people that might be thinking about leveraging paid advertising, didn't take advantage of the Wild Wild West that was in 2018, 19, and maybe 2020. But with this shift that is happening, there's a reshuffle of the deck when it comes to everybody understanding the new era of paid advertising. And as a result, that is a great opportunity and time for you to jump in, because not everybody is going to be able to know how to best navigate through this privacy first world. And I'm hoping to be a part of that in terms of educating what's important and what you need to do in order to be successful. So with that, I will go ahead and end this broadcast for today. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to connecting with you in 2 weeks. And obviously keep an eye out for the next newsletter, which will be coming out next week if you prefer to consume this content on the newsletter or read it versus doing it through video. But the content is going to be the same. The only difference is that the video portion is going to be a little bit more extensive in terms of how I go a little bit more in depth into the information versus the written form. So thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful Cinco de Mayo, and I will talk to you next week.